I don't want to kill you, and you don't want to be dead. Or if you prefer, the world is what you make it, friend. If it doesn't fit, you make alterations. I'm Chris Bivey.
And I'm Eddie Webb.
And I gave you 2 quotes today because we're here to talk about Western, the movie, aka Silverado. And so Eddie is used to me putting up a quote and reading something else. So I changed
Right.
today. I put up 2 quotes with an or. So he was thinking I'd pick one or the other because I've done it in the past.
Right.
But you did not factor in, Eddie, that this is Western, the movie. And Western, the movie, has everything. So you're lucky I had to put 6 quotes up there and then go through each one of them in order. Like, do.
You know, it's funny you made the joke about Western movie because I usually try to have at least my opinions on a movie decently formed before we start recording, with the idea that sometimes my opinion will change during the course of our discussion, which I think is part of the fun of this. But I genuinely had no idea how to feel about this, folks. I was struggling to figure out what is bugging me about this movie that can't articulate, and that I think it's exactly it is. It just does feel like someone took, here's all the Western tropes, boom, now put those together into a script.
And we're not going to give the full thought yet because that's an opposite thing.
Sure.
I just want to start off by saying people call it Silverado, but it's also just Western. And we will.
It doesn't help in my head that there was another movie around this time that was Desperado, which had a very catchy theme song.
I'm sorry, it's what?
Desperado?
I'm sorry, it's what?
Desperado.
Oh, Desperado. Yes.
Yeah. And that kept getting, and that song's been in my head for a week, even though I've literally never listened to it in decades, but because of the auto part and it's an 80s Western film, it's like my head is just confused these.
I don't ever think I've seen Desperado, actually.
I don't think I have either. I just know the song. And more simply, I know the chorus. That's it. And because my brain hates me, I will now replay just the chorus endlessly in my head for days.
It's something about fences in there, which makes me think it deals with cattle, but I could be wrong. Right. Now I want to go look up the lyrics of the song, but I am going to refrain this episode and not do random researching while we're discussing the movie. Look at that. I'm a professional.
Wow. I probably will.
It took me like 5 years to become one, but I am now a podcasting professional. I think we've been only doing this for 4 years, so you have to question where that other year comes from.
Just, life. Don't talk to me about life.
Oh. Eddie, it's because I've lived 4 different plot lines into one, so that's why it feels like 5 years instead of 4.
Right. Speaking of,
so had you seen this movie before? Let's go back to how we always start these. Had you heard of this movie?
I had the exact same experience I had with the last movie we watched, in the sense of I was surprised at a couple of names going into the movie, and then kept being surprised by who they actually cast this movie. Like, oh, this person in this movie? Oh, this person in this movie? Oh, John Cleese is in this movie? What the fuck? What is going on?
So had you heard of this movie?
I think I've heard the name, but I genuinely, beyond the fact that I knew Kevin Kline was in it, and I saw online somewhere that it's like one of Costner's early films.
I think it's like his technically second major feature film. All right, so originally he was supposed to have been in the Lawrence Kasdan film, The Big Chill. Like he had like a bunch of scenes. That was going to be his big debut. And in the end, almost all of his scenes got cut. I don't know if you've seen The Big Chill.
It's been a long time.
Me too, but I remember it's a good movie. And
it's a neo-noir film, right? Yeah.
It's a bunch of friends who are going to like a place since their friend like died. I'm trying to remember if he committed suicide or not, but Kevin Costner was a friend who died.
Then no, I'm thinking of a different film then.
All right. The Big Chill's good if I'm right. We may have to cover that now because it's more of a dramedy, and I use the comedy part, I think, loosely.
Then yeah, I'm thinking
Kevin Costner was supposed to be big in that, and Kaz ended up cutting most of his scenes out of it. And so there's a lot of debate depending on where you look, because one of the things we talked about is now that we're coming closer to our time frame, there's more information about films than what there were for some of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But Silverado has a lot of conflicting information.
Okay.
One of it is like some things says that Kasdan wrote this role specifically for Costner to be in it. That's why it's like such a scene stealing role to make up for the fact he cut him, other than like I think one scene of his hair from The Big Chill.
Wow. Okay.
Another says it like Kevin Costner came and lobbied heavily for the role, and it was offered to other people before him.
Okay. That does sound like the kind of traditional every person's the hero of their own story, oral history thing, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, though, for that, Costner is in this because of his link to The Big Chill and being mostly cut out of The Big Chill.
Okay.
And I think without this movie, Kevin Costner would not have become Kevin Costner.
Yeah, I could see that. And again, like I'm sure we'll get into it, but like there are a couple of performances that are like just before certain people broke out, and so like they, you know, they have certain vibe and cadence that we think of today that aren't really present in this movie.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on like the big five.
Right.
So I'm not going to talk about who I think you want to talk about. You're going to have to wait for him to pop up.
Sure. Yeah, it's later in the film. Yeah.
That fly's got to keep buzzing. Kevin Kline was already like a notable figure, but I think Kevin Kline's career was sort of on the decline before this. But he was also in The Big Chill. He was like one of the lead characters from The Big Chill. So getting Kevin Kline to be here was for that. Scott Glenn. I don't really have a lot about Scott Glenn. Scott Glenn, not Glenn Scott.
Right. Very different people.
Jesus. But he's a known actor. He did a bunch of stuff. He looks like a Western person.
He does look like a Western person. In fact, he looked like the most like a Western person in this whole movie.
Yeah, he was the most Western looking person in the movie.
Right. But yeah, like if I remember correctly, this is around the point where Kevin Kline starts becoming more of a comedic actor after around this time. Like late 80s and 90s, he started doing much more comedy roles, if I remember correctly.
I thought he always did, because I think Pirates of Penzance is before this, which is a comedy musical where he plays the Pirate King.
Oh, okay. Then maybe I'm wrong then. All right.
And I think, was A Fish Called Wanda before 85?
I thought Fish Called Wanda was after this, because somewhere in my head I got the impression that they had met on a previous film and they decided they wanted to work together on something, but it could be the other way around. It could be they worked together on Fish Called Wanda and then decided to do this.
You're saying they? Who's
him and
they
John Cleese?
Okay.
Kevin Kline, John Cleese. Yeah.
You may be right, because I know it's so. Kasdan is a person that, from the version of the story I'm going to tell, because there's lots of different things, is stuff that Kasdan did, because this is a Kasdan affair. Like it's written by Lawrence and Mark Kasdan, but you know Lawrence Kasdan, right? I don't need to.
Probably should. No? I actually don't know. No.
Lawrence Kasdan was one of the writers / co-writers for like The Empire Strikes Back. He was in the room when they're making Indiana Jones. Like Lawrence Kasdan was like a golden boy for a while there for like scripts and stuff like this, and he spent a lot of his cachet. Why this movie feels.
Okay, yeah, that explains a bit why. The other thing I was kind of thinking was like, this feels a bit like a Spielberg film, and that's why that makes a lot of sense.
He spent a lot of like his cachet to make this film that he got from all of those, because Hollywood is like, Westerns are dead, but he's like, I could bring it back. Look what I did with all these guys. You wouldn't have Star Wars without me.
Yeah. Okay.
And they begrudgingly agreed. That's why this movie has such a big budget.
Yeah, apparently 23 million.
Yeah, it was. All right. So anyway, back to the big five. Talked about Scott Glenn. I don't really know that much. Danny Glover, the studio didn't really want necessarily Danny Glover to do the role, because they didn't want a black cowboy to be a lead of a film with the other three. And the story that I'm telling from the one of the versions I read is that Kasdan actively pushed for it to make it happen. He wanted a better representation of the past, and so it happened. So I'm going to assume that was all Kasdan's part, because he's the person that cashed in a bunch of chips to make the movie happen. And much
That
like
does
bringing
track.
in Linda Hunt,
Oh, okay.
because he brought her in for this because he loved the award that she won for the movie before this, where she was playing, I want to say like a male or trans journalist. I can't remember the name of, in a war zone.
Huh.
I'll kick myself later because I knew what it was earlier. So like he made all these choices to bring all these people together. And when I say it's a Kaz affair, he wrote it with Mark. And so they wrote it together. But then he brought in like his sons in the film. I think they have a cousin that's in the film. Like his son is one of the kids in the camp, like with the wagon train. I also think his son is one of the co-writers of Solo, a Star Wars film.
All right.
Regardless of how you may feel about Solo, a Star Wars film. That's a song joke in there. I don't know if people will get it, so it's just for me.
It's just for you. I have very mixed opinions about, well, to be frank, most Star Wars films, but in particular Solo.
But we're not here to get into our Star Wars debate. We should have a whole episode just about Star Wars.
Sure. I mean, we could do a whole series about Star Wars at this point, frankly.
Ugh, I don't know if I want to do that.
I mean, same, but I'm saying we could.
Well, if you say we do a whole series about Star Wars, now we're going to like deviate from the movie. That means we have to cover the Ewok movies from like the 80s, Eddie.
Right. Yeah. No, we'd have to cover Droids, the cartoon.
I can't get past the Ewoks movie. That's where I'm kind of stuck at, because I think there were 2 of them, maybe 3. And we'd have to cover the 70s Star Wars special with B. Author.
Well, if you could find it, honestly. It's around, anyway. But it's largely lost media. But there was the Ewok cartoon. There was a Droids cartoon. There was a Droids Ewoks crossover episode, my friends.
Then we'd have to cover the Clone Wars before the Clone Wars became the TV series. There was just like a bunch of shorts.
Which was genuinely good, but yeah.
And do you really want to be saying the word Dooku all the time?
Yes, kind of.
That's the kind of person you are.
Dooku.
So Kaz had brought in all these people, including his family, to make this movie because he wanted to make basically a love story to the old westerns that he loved and grew up with. The John Ford type westerns primarily, which I think definitely you can tell from Western, the movie.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's definitely an impression I got was like, this is very Fordian, but for a minute, like the first 20 minutes, I was like, is this a satire? Right? No, it's an homage. All of it's homage. And became clear as the movie went on. But like, it's such a faithful adaptation. At one point in time, it's like kind of titters into, is this a parody? But it's not. It's just this is very much someone who loves this kind of thing and wanted to do this kind of thing.
Because he wanted to show that westerns could become moneymakers again and turn it back. I think he actually envisioned Silverado becoming a series of movies, which it did not happen.
No.
So they even rewrote parts of the movie itself to be more family friendly. For instance, they changed one of the hanging scenes that they were going to do, so there was no hanging because there was concern that kids may try to like hang themselves. Kind of how when kids saw the Human Torch, how when the Fantastic Four cartoon came out, they replaced the Human Torch with a
robot. Herbie.
I forgot to remember. Thank you. I forgot the name of Herbie for a second. I remember the Love Bug, but not that it was the Transformers robot.
Specifically, it is an acronym HERBIE, but I don't remember what it stands for.
How can you call yourself a Fantastic Four fan, Eddie, if you do not know what Herbie stands for?
To be fair, I don't call myself a Fantastic Four fan. I call myself someone who likes Fantastic Four. I don't call myself a fan of anything these days because fans have ruined everything. So I don't call myself a fan of anything anymore. I'm not a fanatic. I just like things.
There you go, folks. The podcast's official opinion on fans. They ruin everything. So if you're a fan of ours, you've ruined our podcast. I hope you're happy.
It's true. Absolutely. 100%. You've ruined this podcast. Stop. Just enjoy it. Don't become a fan of it.
To my point, Mr. I like to bring everything down.
I'm the heel of the podcast.
Silverado, the town itself, was actually they discovered the location at random when they were doing like a helicopter flyover New Mexico, and they saw this ranch and they went up to the rancher and they said, "Hey, we'd like to build one or two things on your property so we can like sort of have a face for the film." And the guy at the time was like trying to figure out what he wanted to do to make money, and he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And in the end, after 12 weeks, they had built an entire town set, Eddie. It had like 38 fronts that people could walk into. There was a church, a jail, a saloon, all fully functional because they wanted to be able to have horses and like ride through town for real in the scenes.
What is it with westerns where every western director goes, "I'm just going to build a couple of things," and they always end up building an entire town?
Because it feels more real and you need that aesthetic.
But what's particularly funny is the cliche of when you go to movie sets and you see like just the front of the building, it's propped up as flat, and it's like basically just a flat front of the building, and it's propped up from behind. There's nothing behind it. It's always a western set that has that kind of trope. But
Yeah.
going through his movies, it sounds like that was pretty rare, and actually most of the time they end up building fully functional towns instead of these. So like the sets that we have today are actually much closer to the quote unquote stereotype of Western sets. The actual Western sets are much more practical, right? Like everything works and functions, and has swinging doors and interiors and the whole nine yards. It's wild.
And the set itself that was built was used for like a good while after that. Like I think Young Guns used it, some other places used it. Somewhere I think I saw that like the Thor movie used it. So it's built. It is a real place where you go and you do things. And funnily enough, we were watching Travel Man the other night, which
Oh
Travel
yeah.
Man, in case anyone doesn't know, is Richard,
Oh, what day?
the Moss from the IT crowd.
Yep.
It's sort of his show where he goes to different locations with another comedian for like a 48-hour window. Originally, it starts where you could go cheap in a 48-hour window, and then it just became where we go for 48 hours once he got more seasons and probably
Right.
better budget. One of them things, I think they went with, might have been Italy or somewhere else. They went to a Western set that is set up where it does live reenactions the entire time and is a real town.
Nice.
They go into the saloon, they get like a drink. I think he gets like a water. And they have like a performance that goes on, and like people get shot and they like fall from stories up to land on the ground and everything else, and they have a full shootout. Western
I
set.
don't even go there.
Western set. So
I may have to go there.
Wow. If anyone isn't watching Travel Man, it was a great show. You should go check it out.
Travel Man is one of the few comedians as a travel show that I actually like, because Richard travels like I do, in the sense that he sometimes overplans everything and then gets vaguely annoyed when things don't go his way.
Yeah. And his unwillingness to really want to try food that he doesn't necessarily know. And he has a guest try it instead.
Right. I mean, if it was just him, the show would not work. Having him go with somebody else and having them be the adventurous one where he's just like, I don't know about this, is actually part of the fun of the show.
And if anyone hasn't seen it, I've been doing a lot of writing and I need some background noise. And so I wasn't background noising Travel Man. We watched Travel Man as a family. But I have been background noising Gadget Man, which Richard takes out. You don't know Gadget Man?
No, I don't know Gadget Man.
So originally, God, I can't believe this is like we're talking about Western. Gadget Man, I think, aired in 2010, and it was like Stephen Fry's Gadget Man. Which I didn't watch that version of it. We did it for one season, but then seasons 2 and 3, Richard takes over the show. And so I watched Richard being a Gadget Man, which is essentially him using it existing with like cutting edge technology at the time. So like 2011, 2012, and like 2013 technology. One of which is there was like a Kickstarter for something called the Death Watch. That he wakes up, it's a watch that you wear and it tells you like when you're supposed to die.
Wow, that's fun.
And it's him doing all, because the Kickstarter, because I looked it up because I was curious about it, says that it's a life affirming thing to show you how much time you have so you enjoy it. I don't think it worked because I think he said in the episode, I was supposed to have been dead 4 years ago. So it's funny. It's him. It's like, it's talking about different sorts of like tech at the time, and it's him joking around. It's about 30 minutes. one of the things I did see that I almost want to get is, God, I can't believe I'm wasting all my time talking about this. Is that he went to like a dinner with other comedians, and he even jokes about like at 9 p.m. I have to go home to go to bed. But
Right.
they went to a pub, and there's this thing that you can put like a little gadget on top of your beer, and it pulls up all the foam on the beer to make it tastier.
Oh wow, that's
So
awesome.
Travel Man, freaking hilarious, great background noise.
He does have another show. I think it's actually called Question Man, which runs the trends, something like question something. But basically, the whole gimmick is that he's the host of a trivia show, but
Yeah.
all of the people playing write the trivia questions so he can actually play because he doesn't want to deal. He doesn't want to actually run anything. It's actually really funny.
And for people that have kids, he's even published a couple books, and he does the audio of them. And my daughter has like one or two of them we got for her, and she loves listening to them. That she goes to sleep listening to his voice. So, all
Yeah,
right, a bunch of talk about Richard Ayoade. That's not how you pronounce it.
Ayoade, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Back to Western, the movie, less about Richard, the amazing, awesome comedian and genius. Which you also, if you haven't seen Last One Laughing, season 1, Richard's in it, and it's fucking amazing. We're watching season 2 right now.
Yep, so are we.
Frustratingly, we know about it, so we're watching it as episodes drop, which
week by
sucks.
week. I know it sucks so much. It's like, no, well, I gotta know what happens next. Is Bob gonna make it this time? I don't know.
Did you know this Last One Laughing is like a big multiple countries thing?
Yes, I did know that because we at least here we have access like Ireland and Australia and a couple of other ones.
Ireland's pretty good. We liked
Yeah.
Ireland. Canada was surprisingly disappointing.
Yeah, considering all the Canadians that are good comedians.
I like the host of Canada, but I think it might have been better if they'd had like a person who is a professional host or talk show person versus an actor filling in for the role.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a part of it.
Because now having seen, no, we're on this now. Now having seen like Graham Norton do it, and I knew his name before I started. The guy that's a British version, who are both actual like host. There's a different vibe that they bring that I don't think the Jay could replicate.
I think is a big part of it, because they bring a theatricality to the yellow cards and red cards that I think really helps.
Yeah, and so I'm half tempted to watch the one from South Africa so I could see how I think Trevor Noah does it.
That was pretty good. We watched a few episodes of it. It was pretty good. The problem is, a lot of the references I just didn't get. That's the downside of some of these other countries, is that they're making jokes to each other, to referencing things that I have no context for. So it's like, okay, I think that's funny. But
that's kind of how we were for Ireland. So that's why I'm like, potentially South Africa, and I think there's one for Japan too that we're thinking about doing.
Yeah, but Trevor was pretty good on that one as a host.
Anyway, back to this movie. we'll riff from South Africa back to Danny Glover's Black Cowboy in the film. Look at that! Look at that! Yeah. Perfect segue.
Perfect, seamless.
What else you want to know about the background of the movie? We've riffed for a long time away from the movie, so I want to like get us back on track. But do you want to know any other back history facts? You want to get into it proper?
I mean, how much did it make? I mean, you said it cost $23 million. How much did it actually make?
It had about an 11 or 12 week run, and it made about $32 million. Part of the thing was, though, is it came out, I think the first week it did really well, but then the second week, another little film came out that you may have heard of. It's a minor film. A lot of people don't know it. It's called Back to the Future. So,
is that the one that's was the Rick and Morty live action movie?
And so, no, that's the one where where a white guy went back in time and created rock and roll. So, it's
right.
Yeah,
you love it.
Yeah, I'm never going to forget that very frustrating, irritating scene. Yeah.
Right.
And eventually, funny enough, though, that Back to the Future, in fact, goes to the Old West, too. So look at that. The Western genre has influenced everything.
So it's funny because we talked about how with the previous movie that, the rumors were they kind of killed Westerns, but it sounds like the quote-unquote death of Westerns lasted only 5 years.
I don't know.
And
I wouldn't say never
honestly,
died.
I say that as a kind of a joke, but like, to be honest, what actually sounds like it happened is one movie tanked. A bunch of studios and rightfully so. Like one studio collapsed functionally as a result of it. Other studios said, "Cool, we're not going to do westerns for a while," and then the next western that gets walked in the door and basically makes a good case pitch makes money. So westerns never really died. It's just the studios got shy for 5 years.
Yeah, it was because this was a modest success, but at the same time, like it is Silverado. Regardless of what we're going to think of it or my review of it, not even review, my assessment at the end is going to be Silverado was a key cornerstone for bringing the Western genre back as much as it came back. Because that's why you get things like Young Guns, I think, in 88. It's why you get The Quick and the Dead, like in 1992. Without Silverado, you wouldn't have Tombstone or the other one.
Right.
Like all those movies would not exist without this. Unforgiven by Clint Eastwood in like the mid 2000s, early 2000s wouldn't exist without this.
Right. Yeah, because I'm sure we'll go into it, but certainly one thing that I was struck by that's relevant to this topic is this movie feels differently than the other westerns we've seen. And I was struggling to articulate why. I think I've gotten closer to an answer as part of our conversation, but I think as we walk through, maybe I'll find the actual answer. But certainly it does feel like the line between a quote unquote traditional Western and a modern Western feels like it's right here in Silverado. This movie feels like a modern Western, and the Western movies I've seen since the 80s. So while there was a slow evolutionary change, it does feel like there was a pretty strong shift with this movie.
Because he wanted to go back to much like Lucas and Spielberg that wanted that action pulpy vibe with a positive bent to it. That's what Kazan wanted for this, and that is what Silverado does. This is right. Like a pulp western.
Yeah. And when you said that he had worked on one of the Indiana Jones films, like, oh, okay, this does for westerns what Indiana Jones did for 30s pulp novels. So it's like, okay, now I'm closer to understanding what this feeling was when I was watching it, and that it is not, again, it's not a parody of the western; it is an homage to westerns. But it well, let's talk through it because I don't know if it quite hits that or not, actually.
All right. My other big thing that I'll bring up here, because we're going to get to in a second anyway, is that for the gun violence in the film, they want it to be kid friendly, but they also want it to feel real. That's why when you see people get shot, they usually just die. They get shot. There isn't like, oh, and like a big splatter of blood and antagonizing death. It's clean death. You're wounded, clean death, wounded.
And it certainly has that 80s era vibe of let's make things as inclusive and family friendly as possible, which was very mid 80s media, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, like to the point where I'm a little surprised there wasn't a person in a wheelchair in the background randomly, kind of, you know, because that was very much how things did in the 80s. Like you had the girl, you had the black person, you had the guy in a wheelchair, and that was pretty much every 80s cartoon and or ensemble cast for a while.
To some extent, I would say something, but the thing is, knowing that Kazan made active choices to do that and fought for them is different than having them be stock stereotypes that don't matter, which in what you're referencing, they didn't matter. Here, they were predominant players in the film, and there were additional characters, like at least of color, in different scenes in the background.
That's actually a really fair pushback, right? Like I'm being dismissive of it. I'm talking at a high level, but you're right. Like all of the diversity we see on the screen does matter. Granted, it's still heavily white and still heavily able-bodied, but it's not just that. And compared to how those kinds of characters were handled in previous movies, it definitely feels like it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, like I will put my foot down here, and we can talk about it after the film. But Stella is a love interest in this film.
Oh, I'm just ready to argue for that point, actually. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah. All right. 3 armed men ambush Emmett as he sleeps in an isolated shack. Epic gun battle ensued. Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, pew, pew.
He kills him, stepping out of the isolated cabin into the movie's title, Silverado. Then back into the film. Emmett notices the brand on a horse before setting off with one of the bandits' horses into the mountains. As credits roll, we get beautiful countryside, more title credits. Emmett riding over every single Western landscape imaginable through the westerny, most Western music ever played in a Western that you could have music in.
Right. So, but you can see why, like, the first 5 or so minutes, I'm going, is this a parody, right? Because it's like just every single stock trope of a Western just piling off each other in the first, 5 or 10 minutes of this movie.
So the way I justified it to myself is I'm representing like the different the different vistas he's seeing as the length of time he's traveling. Like on that horse, he's going for a long time, like
Sure.
we'll say weeks at a time.
Right.
But you can't really tell because the movie gives you no points of reference for time.
Right. What I will say though is, as much as I'm making fun of the movie a bit here, um, this start just in the middle of things was actually really engaging. It's like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Why is he being shot at? What's going on? And then when the credits start rolling, I was actually mildly annoyed, right? Because I'm like, I don't. They still do some storytelling while the credits are going to the credits. Credit. um. So like, he cleans up after them and then starts the writing, and that's all happening while the credits are on screen. So like the story keeps continuing under the credits, which is again very modern approach. But I was like, okay, so who is this guy and what's going on? I am already kind of pretty quickly engaged. And you're right, like he looks like a stock Western loner character. So it's like, okay, well, there's probably a mysterious backstory behind this guy. Turns out it's not as mysterious as I had hoped for, but
And you get the scene though. He goes through like pistols, then to rifles, so you get to see both of them being used.
right.
It is a gunfight, and it's pretty gripping. I like it. It's somewhat unreasonable for some of it, which is where you get that pulp feel from it.
Yep.
It's not spaghetti at all. It's definitely a pulp vibe more than a spaghetti vibe.
No, and to we were talking before about the role of violence and how at least one movie intentionally shifted violence to be depending on how important you are to the plot. This movie at least does go back to normalizing violence. It's cartoon violence, but everyone is subject to the cartoon violence. So it's not just certain characters can get away with other things other characters can't. No, everyone is in the world of this is a cartoony but still gripping gun violence.
Yeah. So it's nice. His campsite though reminded me of campsites I did when I was in Boy Scouts. Hands
really?
down, like even the little middle coffee thing and everything else utterly reminded me of my time in Boy Scouts. I don't know if that was intentional of the movie because it's trying to talk to kids, but I'm just saying.
I didn't have that, but certainly the metal coffee cup thing. I was like, okay, I did have a vivid flashback of a blue with white speckled metal camping mug. So I remember at least that piece.
As you know a lot more about the sound and everything else I do, was there a sound mixing issue with the film? Because some things seem to be super loud and super soft and inconsistently so for like the first 15 minutes really of the movie for me.
Yes, to the point where I actually inadvertently watched the first 2 minutes of 3 different versions of this movie because I thought there was something wrong with the sounds.
Okay.
It doesn't help that the movie starts silent. Like it shows you the the studio logos before it starts the movie, and all of that is silent, which is atypical of the era. And then it's very, very quiet background noise, which I didn't even notice until I found one with subtitles and it said crickets chirping or something. And it's like, oh, okay, there's supposed to be sound here. Thank you. And then the guns are very, very loud, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like in retrospect that was intentional, is to get the audience. It's something that it is way overused now, but I think this time they're starting to play with the idea of get quiet, get the audience to kind of unintentionally lean in to kind of catch everything, and then big loud noise to kind of shock them a bit more. And I think that's kind of what the intent was here. But because if you notice, the initial gunshots were extremely loud, but when it becomes a proper gunfight, they normalize very quickly.
Yeah.
The later gunshots are actually not as loud as the first couple.
It's your pro commercial stake on television. Because essentially you have a television, say if you're watching a television show, the television show is generally, and we'll say a volume of 6. But when
Yep.
a commercial starts, that commercial jumps up to like a volume of 8 or 9.
Yep.
Okay.
Similar, a lot of movies nowadays, when they're doing intimate emotional conversations, the voice volume will go down really loud, blah blah blah, and talk like this, and then suddenly the big thing happens, and everyone's that loud again, and like that's a very common, very annoying sound mixing trick, to the point where there's actually a setting on Amazon Prime where you can undo that and actually normalize volume.
And I mentioned the commercial thing specifically because I remember like a year or two ago, before the kiddo had never seen commercials because we watch some of stuff on streaming, but we were watching, it might have been like a football game or something, and she was watching it with us, and she was like, "What is this?" for a commercial that popped up. En route to Turley, Emmett rescues Peyton, lying in the desert clad only in his long johns, after being robbed and left for dead. He lends Peyton the spare horse, and they arrive at a cavalry outpost where Peyton spots the man who stole his horse. He hurries in to buy a gun with money Emmett loans him. The thief shoots first, but misses Peyton. Peyton kills him with one shot. Peyton runs into Cobb, a former criminal associate who lends him money for new clothes and offers him a job, though Peyton declines. As Emmett prepares to head out, Peyton does what all guys do and be like, "Hey man, I guess I can go too if you want me to go. Won't have to go." But they leave together.
If you want.
Eddie, 6 minutes and 15 seconds go by before a word is spoken in this fucking film.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by that. And again, like, I didn't know if Emmett was going to be an eternally silent character, if we're going to do kind of a Clint Eastwood thing. And in retrospect, since you mentioned this as Western the movie, I'm sure that was an homage. Let's have a silent character for as long as we can sustainably do it, until we have to have dialogue. But then, like, yeah, it's like a guy's functionally left to die in his underwear, and he's just laying there and very chill about the whole thing. And I'm like, is this a comedy? And it turns out, no. Peyton is just, the point of Peyton is that he is unflappable. That's like his gimmick. And when everything else is going weird around him, he is the one that tries to keep just to stabilize things. Although it does lead to funny moments where he is literally in his underwear getting shot at and desperately trying to buy a gun. And he has no money because he's in his underwear. And it's not, he's not, but Kevin Kline is, as we talked before, he's a very funny actor, but he's not playing it funny. He's using comedic timing to play straight lines to make it even funnier. And so that's a very specific talent, which he's very good at.
It's unbelievable. So, all right. At this point in the movie, you're still thinking it's a parody, but are you enjoying the film? Because that won't give away whether or not you like the film in the end, but are you enjoying it up to this point?
No, totally. Like, I mean, what? I mean, I like Blazing Saddles, right? So, like, the idea of it being a parody was not necessarily going to put me off the movie. It was just more like, I don't know what this movie's trying to do yet. But I was like, I like Kevin Kline, and he is being funny in this, and Emmett's being serious. Like, and it's weird because, like, they're both straight men, but they're doing two different versions of straight man archetypes. So they end up being a brief comedy duo for this chunk of the movie, even though they're both playing straight man, which is, again, because Kevin Kline is very specifically good at being a comedian, he's able to pitch that right.
Yeah.
Because Emmett is again, almost archetypal, nothing phases me no matter what. I'm the silent guy who gets things done, straight man, right? Peyton is the fast talking straight man. He's like, nothing phases him, but he will keep talking through the problem. And so that makes him funny as a result. But then it's weird because, like, even though Peyton doesn't change, as we see later, funnier characters come in, which completely recognizes Peyton, even though Peyton as a character changes not at all. So it's really, really interesting. So I'm fascinated by the character dynamics that are happening. And again, like, Emmett and Peyton are talking about, they know each other, and they're having conversations, and they're not doing the "as you know, Bob" speech, right? They're talking like people would.
They know each other, but they don't know each other. They literally just met.
Well, but they're not. Okay, let me rephrase that. I wasn't sure if they knew each other or not at the start, I should say, because the way they were talking, I thought they knew each other. Maybe it's a better way of putting it.
Okay.
Uh, uh, because it's like, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? Like just very casually. Um, and so at this point, I thought they did know each other for quite a while in the movie, actually, until near the end of this chunk, it was actually clear. Oh no, they actually don't know each other. So my apologies. I was back in my headspace of where I was watching the movie.
You're not wrong. Like the banter and friendliness they have would make you think that, but like the part for me that really stood out is when he asks him sort of like what happened, and you get Kevin Kline's or Peyton's approach is I treat everyone like they're going to be a friend because you can never have enough of them. So that
Right,
establishes like how he's so open to everyone he meets. And you also have Emmett, who has been traveling by himself for we're going to assume weeks now, and the chance to have a friendly conversation opens him up to that too.
right, right. And that's a good point. Actually, I hadn't thought about that, so that makes a lot of sense. Um, but again, like I think it's a couple things. One is the conversations were written they're not realistic, but they are plausible.
Yeah.
They don't sound like movie dialogue. They sound like conversations that people could have, but they're not gritty, realistic dialogue. So it is still heightened. It's still elevated dialogue. Um, and the other thing is, shockingly, in an ensemble movie, everyone has chemistry with everyone, as we'll find out. Like there are, I can't. I mean, maybe as we go through, I'll remember one, but like, off the top of my head, I can't think of any 2 or 3 actors bouncing off each other that worked badly. Everyone is just clicking with everyone else in a really good way the whole movie. And right out the bat, these two just
I have someone who didn't work for, but I'm not going to mention until
maybe
we
I'm forgetting
encounter
somebody.
that person.
Okay, fair enough.
It just stood out to me really, really strongly. Is the other reason it's there.
It's a big cast.
My question for you right now is: were you surprised that during a conversation they both admitted to having been in prison? Like you literally just met this person, one of them sort of lying out, and they briefly touch on having both been to prison.
Uh no. It didn't surprise me, but now that you asked me a question, I immediately go through my head going, now why didn't it surprise me? And I think it's because I had internalized a trope that the movie then goes on to actually exploit, which is as long as you're not explicitly wearing a badge of some kind, you're therefore not law enforcement.
Okay. Hmm. Anything else about this before we move on?
Um, no, I think it's it.
You know what? We do get a reference to the dog here. Is the dog's a recurring theme? I want to
Oh,
drop
yes.
that it happens here for like the first time. Um, in Turley, Emmett and Peyton encounter a wagon train of settlers with a large money box. While the pair are eating in the saloon, Mal comes in off the trail looking for whiskey and a bed. The barmaid eyes him but accepts his money and gives him a bottle before the racist owner and 2 white jackasses intervene. Mal dispatches the low rent cowboys, causing some damage in the process before Sheriff John Langston arrives, ordering Mal to leave town, but he doesn't have to pay for the damage because he knows who the saloon owner is. Then Langston chats with Emmett and Peyton, learning that Jake is about to be hanged for murder the next day. Emmett intends to break him out of jail, but Peyton declines to get involved. At the saloon, Peyton kills the other man who robbed him, reclaiming his hat and gun, and is placed in Jake's cell. I could have made a big joke, but I chose not to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, this, I think, is a good point to talk about one of the reasons why I came into this recording unsure how I felt this movie is the pacing feels weird to me.
Yeah.
Right? Not in the usual the pacing, could be faster here and slower here, but rather I genuinely don't know if this movie would be better if it was shorter or longer. Because this is what 15 minutes into the movie, right?
About that.
And we have 5 or 6 characters that are going to be relevant for some portion of this movie already. Yeah. And they all have fairly complicated backstories, all things considered. And so, like, there's part of me going, would this be better as like a mini series? Just the stories of this town Silverado, right? Or did this movie need to cut like 3 or 4 supporting characters? And I genuinely don't know the answer.
Funny enough that you mentioned that, like, one of the reasons I think Lonesome Dove gets turned into a miniseries is because of Silverado. And the direct linkage is Danny Glover, if I remember right, is in Lonesome Dove.
Oh, okay. So I'm not far off base here.
But Lonesome Dove is also like a book series by a really famous Western writer who has like a whole bunch of them.
Right,
so,
right.
Which if people want me to talk, if people want us to cover Lonesome Dove, they should let us know, and maybe we'll add it. Maybe we'll have a Western TV run that I keep thinking about.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of those either. I mean, maybe I've probably got an episode here and there, but yeah, like to your point, I'm also like used to, especially this era of movies, if there's an ensemble cast, there's still someone who's the lead character of the movie thinks should be in leading the movie, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know who that is.
Oh, that was my next question for you. Who is the lead?
Right. At the end of the movie, I have a 60% certain answer. But at this point in time, I'm like, because I'm like, okay, is it Emmett? Because we see Emmett first. So I'm like, okay, it's probably Emmett. But then the movie starts following Peyton's emotional journey a bit more right off the bat. I know more about Peyton at this point than I knew about Emmett. So I'm like, okay, so maybe Peyton's supposed to be lead. And also he's the first person to speak. So like maybe Peyton's the lead, right? And then Mal comes in and I'm like, okay, well, Mal's going to be the supporting character. But like right away, there's a lot of stuff happening with Mal.
Yeah.
And
so, the thought of him being a supporting character is undercut to some extent when you get like Peyton says that doesn't look fair, and you have Emmett quip back to who, and you see Mal take care of the whole situation by himself without them intervening.
Right.
Which establishes lead character energy, which all 3 of them now have.
Yeah, because like again, maybe it's part of the reason why I was struck in the film, because like the movie kept not quite doing what I expected it to do, even though it was doing a lot of things I expected it to do. And one of those was like, if you're the supporting character, one of the white characters is going to come over and take care of the problem for you. And that's just not what happened. Like Mal's story would have happened identically if they had never showed up. Yeah. And in fact, they do functionally disappear from the scene until Mal leaves the saloon.
So it's
all right. It's wild.
Taking a step back, I love the fact that when the 2 of them ride into town, they give you a tour of the town, setting up the stage. They don't have to like go into it later. They can just like show you the location. Like that is a nice directorial touch that I love. And one of the things when I'm writing a Western, I like to have the players ride in so they get like a view of the town to help establish everything for them. And that's what this does. And I'm making that specific comment because if you play a video game, this feels like a video game from how everything is done.
Oh, interesting point. I hadn't thought about that.
Start to finish, because you have like we'll start with our first player is going to be Emmett, and then Emmett starts with a fight. Then a little time goes by, Emmett definitely needs another encounter of some kind. So that's when we encounter Peyton, and then we need another encounter here, and Peyton becomes another character that you can switch between. And you encounter Mal, and then Mal is another encounter that we need it. You jump into Mal's perspective, and I have 3 characters that you can switch between. It's Red Dead Redemption 2.
Now that you say that, like that's wild, because the movie starts with here's the combat tutorial.
Yep.
And then here's how you learn how to ride a horse.
Yep.
And
this is how you hunt.
Right.
It is Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's wild, because the first meeting with Peyton is basically here's the first dialogue tree where you can't really fail. And then you jump into Mal, where it's like here's dialogue tree where you could get into a fight or not. You start seeing the consequences of your act. Yeah, no, that is weird. Yeah, this whole is tutorial. That's wild.
Yeah. Because as I was watching this time and having recently replayed Red Dead Redemption 2, I was like, holy shit. I think they just literally watched this movie and said, let's turn this to a game that became unbelievably super successful. Yeah. Eddie, I myself would want to drink that whiskey, but there's got to be glass in that whiskey, right? That bottle got broken on the counter where the whiskey was. That was my first thought. I watched this movie with Jill, and Jill was like, he's going to die of internal bleeding. Like,
Not wrong, not wrong. But again, it's a pulp western, so that whiskey's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And the only reason, though, that Jill watches with me wasn't because I asked her to, but our neighbor said, Silverado is a good Western to watch. And she believed our
Mm.
neighbors over me. I'm not going to say if I think it's good or not. And I won't tell you what her thoughts were, but she doesn't like Westerns. So you can only imagine right now, the most Westerny Western that's ever Western, how she'd feel about that.
Right. Okay. So I genuinely was baffled when John Cleese walks in at this point, right? Because again, up to this point, I'm thinking, is this movie a parody? And then John Cleese walks in, I'm going, okay, well, I guess I have my answer. And then I'm wrong. I'm just completely wrong.
Yeah.
Because the character's not funny.
He is like deadpan serious. Oh!
Yeah, but what happened is like a couple things happened. One is it by having a British man be the sheriff, immediately the whole place feels much more diverse than most of the westerns we've seen thus far, right? I mean, yes, Mal's there and that's great, and he has his own agency and that's awesome. But then immediately followed by a British sheriff who, and nobody is commenting on either. Like the sheriff does kind of give Mal some stick, but also does say, "Yeah, this guy's racist, so I'm not going to give you too much stick." And so like there's very much a feeling like everyone's just fine living like this. None one's surprised by anybody involved in this conversation. And so it's like, okay, so it's not just here's the Eastern Europeans, right? Here's the black character. It's like no, like it felt immediately more diverse. And then for the few scenes that he's in, Langston has a complicated emotional trajectory. So
Yeah.
he's not explicitly racist, but he is reinforcing the institutional racism of the city. And then has a conversation with two strangers in town, and they start getting engaged in this conversation while also simultaneously, at least one of them saying they're not part of the conversation, but they obviously are because of the way Langston pitches his conversation. And so, like, a lot of work is happening here, which is why, again, it felt like weirdly paced because this chunk of scene could have been like a whole episode,
Yeah.
There's a lot happening here. And a couple times I had to rewind this because I'm like, wait, what's happening? And part of it was because my brain kept going, and this is where John Cleese makes the joke, and it doesn't happen. And this is where Kevin Kline's gonna make a joke, and it doesn't happen. And it's like the explicitly funny people are not doing funny things, whereas Mal has some pretty good one-liners, right? And there's a lot of dry humor here, so it's just like my brain was just like, okay, I genuinely know what's going on. At this point, I had the case to say to myself, okay, stop overthinking it. Just watch the goddamn movie.
Because I love the fact that he comes in and he's the sheriff, because that shows a more historical accuracy to the fact that there were a bunch of immigrants that came to the country that had all sorts of different jobs and roles, and they could do anything. And it's just not how we saw in Heaven's Gate, where you just have them as being oppressed farmers trying to get by.
Right.
You've got just integrated into like this town and part of it. And much like the sheriff from Buck and the Preacher, who himself may not have been overly racist, but was enforcing whatever the law of that territory was, is what he was doing. And trying to like work within it. And you have here John Cleese doing the same thing, enforcing whatever that law is. And I even have my note that like the sheriff isn't racist because he takes an approach with Mal and then sort of kicks Mal out of town because of violence happened. He comes to both Peyton and Emmett and does the same shtick, but doesn't kick them out of town because they haven't done anything yet.
Right. That's a good point. I was coming at a slightly different angle, I think, but I think those are both really valid. But it's this Buck and the Preacher, and the reason why Buck and the Preacher pitched this way makes sense, but like very much because it was like everyone who was white on that screen was racist, and I stand by it. I think it's the right thing for that movie to do. What's happening here is only a couple people are explicitly racist, and to be fair, I think they're the only ones we ever see in the movie. There might be one or two more that I'm not thinking of right now, but like it's a pretty small minority. But it doesn't. It does enough to say, hey, this is still a thing. We're not excusing it because the guy still owns a saloon. He's still going to be authority of the town, right? He's not being run out of town for being racist. So he still gets to live and have a living.
Yeah.
And so it felt to me much more like, how do people trying to navigate a lot of different conflicting things to get to, I think so, like, at this point the movie is setting me up for, okay, we're gonna have a lot of interesting complicated conversations about this stuff. Spoiler, that is not gonna happen.
Not at all.
Right. So it was, so like, I'm left going, am I overthinking the fact that someone just wanted to cash John Cleese because John Cleese was a hot commodity in 1985?
So the thing that I've heard is that Kazan met John Cleese, liked John Cleese, and wrote a role for John Cleese.
Okay. So yes, I am overthinking this.
And their entire big thing was like, the only real sort of leaning into who John Cleese was is, I think, when he comes in, he says like, "What's this all about?" is supposedly a famous line he had from Monty Python, and they like kick it off with that, and then everything goes to like being, "I'm just the sheriff."
Well, sure. Like, what's this all about is very close to the British cop cliche of what's all this then, right? And so, like, I thought that was what that was a reference. It's like, you see, he's sliding into, even though the peelers were still being made, blah blah blah. I felt like that was kind of the thing. Is like, let's make a slightly British police comment here, and then play the rest of the line straight. So that's how. So we're in roughly the same boat in terms of how we took that line. But yeah, no, it was just wild because like I got, it was one of the more Haunted Westy moments of this run that I felt. Is like, I could totally see a British sheriff and a black guy having a conversation with a guy in his long johns and, you know, racist saloon owner. It's like, these are the kinds of things that would happen pretty regularly.
And this is the only place in the whole movie that we get the N-word drop. And it's not like emphasized in word, it's casually thrown off how a racist would casually throw it off.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, Langston calls him out on that, doesn't he? Not directly, but yeah.
He does. He literally calls him out like, "I don't like that word."
Yes, that's right. Yeah, okay. I forgot if it was him or Mal that said that, but yes, Langston does say that. You're right.
Anyway, I'll leave that scene alone, but it is so much. All right, this movie itself, it seems to set something up one scene and then pay it off the next scene, which is tiring. And I'll leave it at that at the moment. Like, throughout the entire film. I'll explain more when we get to the end.
Yeah. I think we're in the same boat. But yeah, let's wait for that moment because you're right. This is all set up now, so let's not get into it right now.
So, Jake, a babyface Kevin Costner is utterly fucking ridiculous. Like, so we get from bars, everything. Oh my god, I love him. It's the worst, but I love it.
So it's funny because I've been slowly poking away at watching The Seven Samurai. But because of everything else going on, I'm literally watching it like 30 minutes every couple of weeks. It's very slow progress. But it does remind me a bit of this in regards of Seven Samurai starts building a cast of slightly different dour serious characters with a couple of fresh-faced characters, and then the ludicrous guy gets added in, right? And the whole energy of the film changes. And that was Kevin Costner's character. It's like, "Oh, my brother Jake's in jail." It's like, "Okay, cool, we cut the Jake. Jake's going, 'Hey, everybody!'" And it's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know, it's so weird, right? And again, I'm not used to Kevin Costner being in those kinds of roles.
Yeah. But then we have to go back. Remember early Kevin Costner, not like the grizzled and gruff Kevin Costner we know now.
Right, but so like, but it's weird place of like, you have genuinely hired at least 3 actors who are sincerely known for their comedic chops, and you give the funny role to Kevin Costner, who is not necessarily known for that.
He wasn't known for much of this time, though.
Well, sure, right? But like, I'm going by 2026 understanding of these actors, and so it's kind of, if in 2026 I was asked to make this movie in 1885, knowing what I know now about these actors, I would have swapped almost all of these roles, you know, because like, I wouldn't put this and this and that. And the worst part of it is it's all working on a very bizarre level, right? Kevin Costner is genuinely funny here.
Yeah. And I love his explanation to Emmett, because right now you still don't know that he's Emmett's brother. All we know is Emmett came here looking for a guy. That's all he said the whole time.
Right. We don't know yet he's his brother, but we find out quickly after this.
His story is that, much like Katy Perry, he kissed a girl and he liked it. That was like his whole story. The sheriff goes, and he killed somebody. He's like, oh yeah, I did that too. So it shows you his character completely.
Right.
And when they step out, that's when you learn that he's like his brother. And that's when you get a better glimpse into who Emmett is, and also who Peyton is, by Peyton's unwillingness to help Emmett free his own brother. It's like, nope, too much trouble for me.
And that was the other thing, right? Because like it's the movie's going, we met in the desert and we're friends now, and so you're not my brother. And Peyton goes, nope, I'm out. And I'm like, okay, he's gonna come around. No, Peyton's out. He's just not doing this. And it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
So right now, okay, we have Mal, Peyton, and Emmett explicitly are having some kind of character arc, because we see the starts of that right now. Later on, we're going to find there's like 2 or 3 more characters that are also going to have this. This movie's doing a lot, and it's only a couple of hours. Right? This is not a 3-hour movie. And again, the pacing's all weird, because like it feels like it should be more here, or they should be cutting character arcs out.
And so it's going to be a little, like, I think it's like 2 hours and something, but I want everyone right now to think about the fact that, while the movie, we're talking, it's a lot of plot going on. The movie's a little over 2 hours. The last 20 to 30 minutes of this movie, though, is one huge fight scene.
Yeah.
So condense that time down to like maybe an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, you're right, because like all of the character arcs, with a couple of extremely minor loose ends, more or less come to a conclusion. You're right, about an hour and a half in, then it's all just payoff.
Yeah. So it's a lot of running. I have to mention him before we forget him. I think we may have already skipped him. I don't know if he's in this part now that I think about it. Blade Runner. I love seeing that actor. I love seeing him actually have voices and being like a real person and like doing stuff and getting to do a whole bit. And you get the I'm not so and so, and I'm also not so and so. Loved it.
Yeah. I think what I've been kind of struggling for is that everyone on screen feels like they're an actual person.
Yeah.
Which is so weird for a movie that is just made of load-bearing Western tropes.
And we have a wagon train, Eddie. A wagon train. All right. Yes. The next morning, Emmett sets fire to the gallows as a diversion, while Jake and Peyton break out of jail. They escape town with the help of Mal, a crack shot who forces Langston's posse to abandon their pursuit. The 4 men come across the settlers, whose money box has been stolen, and track the robbers to a canyon hideout. Recovering the money box, they escort the wagon train to their destination near Silverado. Peyton and Emmett each take an interest in Hannah, whose brother, husband, whoever, was killed while Mal departs for his parents' farm. Eddie, I said there was someone who does not pull their weight in this movie, and I'm going to assume it's because most of her stuff was cut from the film, because if they removed the 3 minutes she's in, it would not make a difference in this entire film.
As soon as you said Hannah, I was like, oh yeah, okay, there is someone. Yeah, you're right, because the obligatory love interest is such a non-character.
I have to imagine that this movie was probably like 2 hours and 40 minutes, and they needed to cut it down to like 2 hours and 20 minutes. And most of Hannah's stuff is on the floor. That is the only way I can justify her still being here and having like nothing.
Right. And I would be more angry about that if it was not for Stella, who's coming up.
Yeah. Like.
But again, like, I think I finally started to find the tone of the movie around here when Emmett sets fire to the gallows. And I'm like, okay, this is a pulp. Because let's take on the nose symbolism and make it part of our heist plan. Okay, now I get where we're going. Now I understand what we're doing here.
But it's like the little kid that runs at the sheriff's office. Sheriff. I was just waiting for Lassie to come out of the woods somewhere to be with him.
Oh, Lassie says someone set fire to the gallows.
The plan to escape, Eddie. Hayden and Jake, he's in a coat, and he's in the coat with one punch.
Yes.
I think the one punch is when you probably figure out this is a pulp, right? Because he punched him
Yeah,
once
yeah.
and he knocked him out.
Well, I mean, yeah. The Fire of the Gallows, like this whole chunk of the movie, right? It's like when he's hiding behind him in his coat and it punches someone through him and then knocks him off one punch, and they make a joke about it. I'm like, okay, this is an '80s action film. That's what this is. But it's just an action film that has a weirdly high amount of actual character in it.
And how the four of them come together right outside town. Oh, okay. One of my favorite scenes is this scene with John Cleese, the three of them riding out, and Mal shooting everything around him. And when the deputy is like, let's go after him, he's like, he's shooting at us, but he's missing. And he's like, no, you idiot. He's hitting everything he's shot for. Shows you the complete competence of John Lee Cleese's character Langston versus everyone he's working with.
Yeah. And like, he has a great line of like, nope, I believe my jurisdiction ends here, right? It is a great way for him to say, I'm not a coward. I want to do my job, but I recognize the reality of the situation. I don't want to lose my men, but I can't say that in front of them, so I have to come up with a plausible excuse.
Yep.
A lot happens in that short dialogue.
And he punctuates it by like today at the end of that sentence to let you know that tomorrow, when it's not being under fire, I'll be back.
Right. Yeah. And so like it's this is weirdly, I think John Cleese is one of his better dramatic performances.
Yeah, hands down. And we get a good glimpse during the scene also of who Jake is. Like we kind of had an idea before, but when they're escaping and on the street, where Jake just starts pulling out pistols and shooting the person to go back upstairs, and you have Peyton turning and saying, "We're trying to escape quietly," and he just sort of giggles the whole time.
Now, I didn't have written notes, but like I had mental notes, and in my mental notes, I have Jake Deadpooling around the whole scene because that's basically how it all felt, right?
Yeah, and it shows you they don't want to kill arbitrarily, because one shot could have killed that person. Instead, he wastes a whole bunch of bullets being silly to have that person go back upstairs.
Right.
So it's targeted violence from our finger quote good guys.
And so like it's but again, we have this kind of moment of like Jake is funny and he's enjoyable to watch, but also, at least I at this point in the moment, is Jake actually a psychopath? You know, how dark is this movie going to get? And it's kind of already at this point landing on Jake is a lot. It's a combination of Jake is a lot of talk, and also Jake is trying to impress someone. It's unclear who that person is.
Everyone.
Think it's Emmett. Maybe everyone. You're right. Yeah, but he's trying to impress people, and so a lot of his shenanigans can be chalked up to he's way overcompensating for something, which again implies a high level of character interiority that this movie is in no way, shape, or form going to tell us anything more about.
He in some game terms he'd be like a daredevil. If we go old school like nature and demeanor stuff, he'd be a thrill seeker.
Yeah, I can totally see that. But again, it's not he's not dumb, right? But he's cunning. Whereas Emmett's a little more tactical. So again, there's already contrast to it too. Is like Emmett's much more. No, this is the strategy and the tactics, and here's my plan. And Jake's like, cool, like Leroy Jenkins, and you know.
Oh my god! And so much happens like in this 5-10 minutes because we get the escape. Great. Then we meet the wagon train. So this is a video game. We meet the wagon train. They've been robbed. Oh no, we should help them. And then they go and they deal with the robbers of the wagon train in a ridiculous manner. And we knew the one NPC that showed up with them was going to get shot and killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is the point where Joe looked at me when he says, I'm going to go with him, and said he's going to get killed, isn't he? He's like, yep.
Right. And so now that you bring it up, I think what this movie is doing that's in retrospect a bit interesting is it's not hiding its references. You know, it's unlike past movies where we've gone through, oh, this reference that, and it's much more let me find a clever way to homage previous films because I'm such a huge fan. This seems much more, you know, where these chunks of the movie are going to go. So we're going to let you have those so we can undercut you at other parts of the movie. Um, so it's like the parts where the movie's like, I don't want, you know, we're not going to push water uphill. So let's just go lean into it as hard as possible. So that way we have room in other parts of the movie to do interesting things.
Yeah. The other thing I really love, since we're in like one of the big fight scenes here, I one of my notes here is like, what's a range on a pistol? Because when they shot the guy up
Right.
on the mountaintop, they all shot him. Um, but you get a clear delineation of skill sets. Like for violence standpoint, we've established that Mao is a brawler but exceptional rifleman.
Yep.
Peyton is an exceptional single pistol shooter. Like he has great accuracy. That's what we
Yep.
established with the person charging at him. He draws but doesn't shoot super quick, but he hits dead on.
Right.
Jake is quick draw, like hands down, both
Yep.
pistols all the time. Emmett is fascinating to me because Emmett is equally skilled with pistol and rifle, but not to the extent of the other three.
That's a good point. I mean, there's a later scene where he shows he's incredibly good at fast draw and accuracy, right? Um, but you're right. He doesn't overshadow anybody who's that's their specialty, but he is really good at everything. And what's wild to me is that in most movies, the sheer uh, 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 plot gravity around that kind of skill set would involve Emmett eventually becoming the protagonist, and the movie just doesn't. Emmett doesn't ever fall into that role entirely. Emmett's
Yeah.
just the Western guy, the character you expect to see in a Western, doing the kinds of things you expect to see a Western character do. And so, like, as a result, he, by him being just hyper competent loner Western guy, allows everyone else to have more room, I think. So,
Yeah.
like, Peyton doesn't have to also be that guy. Mal does not also have to be that guy. Everyone else can do their own special thing and leave Emmett to just be default good at all the Western stuff.
And before I move on, I want to take a beat for Hannah because this is the only thing Hannah does really in this whole fucking movie is
Okay.
when the Peyton is hitting on her really hard and she talks about that, yes, I'm beautiful, but people don't stay with me because I have this dream about making something beautiful from the land. It's a hard life. It is a good speech, but it feels out of place in this part of the movie from what we've seen.
Right.
And there's sort of a disconnect, but it is the only thing they gave her to do. And I understand what they're trying to do with it, but it doesn't land quite right. But it also highlights once again Peyton's character that he doesn't want to do anything hard.
So this is one of my frustrations with Peyton as a character is because you're right. She has this whole speech, and my thought was, okay, so the movie's going to go into how women should be valued less for their beauty and more for what they can contribute to the land. And we've seen a number of westerns that toy with this idea at various levels. Whether they succeed or not is up for debate, but they do touch on this on some way. The problem is that then Peyton does at two other separate occasions after the scene say some form of, I really like her because she's smart and pretty. And it's just like, did you pay attention to anything she said? And I realized the answer is no, he didn't. Peyton actually didn't get it. So I was annoyed at the time, but how this ties into his relationship with Stella then I think makes that make more sense. But it does mean that Hannah as a character is literally just a plot device for Peyton's character growth.
And as I'm not sure if we'll really mention Hannah again, it's also really insulting and aggravating that her entire purpose seems to be create the concept of a love triangle between Hannah and Emmett, and then the two of them just sort of pass her around between them about who should be with her. So that
Right,
even
especially
that
considering
undercuts. Ugh.
right, and especially yeah, it's a love triangle where 2 points of the triangle aren't clearly engaged in it. Like, aside from Peyton mooning about it in a couple of conversations, like I mentioned, he spends almost no more screen time with her.
Yeah.
And Emmett is so wrapped up in containing Jake's bullshit that he never has time to really do anything either. So yeah, like if there was, again, if this was a longer movie or a mini series, seeing more space with that might be more interesting. But right now it just feels very contrived.
And if I remember right, she's third billed in the film. Emmett and Jake reunite with Kate and her husband JT and their son Augie. It reveals Emmett spent 5 years in jail, here bluntly stated, for killing a rancher after their family feud over land rights. Mal finds his now widowed father Ezra, whose farm has been burned to the ground by McKendrick, the son of the rancher Emmett killed, who seized the land. Reaching Silverado, Peyton visits the saloon and befriends the manager Stella. They gonna fuck. The pair flirted up. Cobb tosses out the old pit boss, because Cobb is also the saloon owner and sheriff of the town, and installs Peyton as the new pit boss.
So yes, I love Stella. I think she's great. I think the only reason why she is not a love interest is because I was going to say audience 1985, but the answer is audiences today would not be amenable to that.
Yeah.
But
the amount of chemistry, though. Oh.
Yeah. See, but what? Even the movie as we see it, even if we don't read that subtext in, which I think is extremely easy to do, they do also come across as really good friends, which leads to something I noticed. Because as I was thinking about Peyton and Stella specifically, I realized there's a larger thing, which is that there's a lot of really positive male friendships in this movie.
Yes.
And ultimately, it is a movie about friendship, and which I think makes the love triangle even more forced, because it is the least authentic human relationship in the whole movie, when there's so many authentic human relationships that just happen to be friendships. But no, you're completely right. Like, every actor is doing some great job with chemistry, and so the way they're talking, she's clearly flirting with him, and Peyton's clearly like almost accidentally flirting back, right? Like his brain's going, "This is what I say now," and then you see him like almost reacting, like, "Wait, why did I say that?" You know. But the way he very quickly becomes defensive of Stella, even against someone who is quote unquote his friends, even though it's very clear that he and Cobb don't get along. Is the movies work so fast about establishing these relationships, and in any other movie, I think I would have been like, none of this is earned because it's all happening so quickly. But with the actors, I completely believe it every time, and I'm at this point, I'm going, why am I believing this? I shouldn't. Like, the Mal, the situation with Mal and his dad, right? His dad literally, no mention this guy even existed until he walks on screen. And then he has a whole backstory.
I think they referenced that he was going to his parents' farm once in passing at a campfire.
The fact that he has parents is a thing that possibly exists. Right. The fact that Mal did not come sprung full formed from someone's head and actually has parents, yes. Right? Okay, fair. But still, like, his whole history, and it comes in a very natural conversation between his two characters.
And then we get, like you're saying, like Mal's backstory about how he fled to like Chicago, where he was a butcher, and then when the other people that sold the land show up, he talks about they're going to kill the cattle, and he's good with cutting meat, and like the banter between him and Ezra is great. So it's all there. But like I said, the scene sets up at this scene and then does away with the next scene constantly.
Right. And then, if that's not enough, Jeff Goldblum is in this fucking movie for some reason. Again, surprise number 2 of like, what is happening? And again, he's not playing a funny character.
Do you want that coat, Eddie, that he's wearing, that he's sporting?
That coat is so good. Oh my God.
And for anyone that's curious, we didn't mention him, but Jeff Fahey, since you mentioned Jeff, is also in this film, who's making a great like tertiary villain for the Titans.
Yeah. It's just a who's who of mid 80s actors right now. And again, they're not, I don't think Jeff Goldblum's comedy stuff is quite as established in '85. I think that comes a bit. I mean, he was pretty funny in Jurassic Park, so maybe I'm wrong. No, Jurassic Park
I
was
think
'90s, so there you
I
go.
think he'd already done Transylvania 65000.
Okay, all right. Then maybe I'm just wrong. You know, I mean, it's not possible. I don't remember these things all blurred together. But like, he's coming in as just a gambler. He's just, hey, I'm a gambler. And oh, by the way, also casually introduces Mal's sister, which again did not know existed until just now.
Yeah, yeah. It's character, bunch of stuff. Just throwing more stuff onto the board as we go.
And so at this point, what I'm enjoying is like there's now functionally 4 or 5 leads and maybe another 5 or 6 supporting characters. There's just so many characters so fast. But it makes Silverado feel like a real place very, very fast. You know?
The one thing that we do know, though, is Jake is not a lead in this film. He is a subset of whatever Emmett's story is.
Yes. He's definitely he and Stella are the strong supporting cast people. And Cobb is the way he treats his pit boss makes it clear, okay, Cobb's the villain. Cobb is the villain that we're gonna center this movie around. But again, it's like that's really only a Peyton storyline. How is everybody else gonna click into this? It does feel like there are 5 or 6 stories going on that aren't necessarily connected to each other. You know, it feels almost like an anthology, right? And so it's again, the pacing is so weird because it's like, do I want more of this, or are there too many storylines going on?
And you're saying Cobb's a villain. Cobb, I wouldn't say he's a villain yet.
From what you know, his trajectory.
Because he's definitely a corrupt sheriff. But the thing is, like when he fired the pit boss, he humiliated the pit boss. It was the fact when the pit boss decided to try to kill him, he killed the pit boss. You find out in a couple minutes all the other stuff Cobb's doing that shows you he's a villain. But he is Peyton's friend for a good 85% of this film. And he's trying to like warn his friend against doing anything beforehand too.
The reason why I say I think he's trending towards villain even at this stage is because Stella is clearly not afraid of anything except Cobb. And she has some really good lines about adapting to things because like it's like because she's behind the bar and she actually has built a ramp behind the bar. And so we have this great visual moment of she comes around and then she starts walking to the bar and she becomes tall enough to serve across the bar. And Peyton looks behind the bar at the same time the camera goes behind the bar and we see that she's built a ramp there. And she has this great line about, I think you quoted it, like, you know, adapting everything to you have to adapt to have them, you have to adapt. No, everything adapt to you rather than the other way around. Which already positions her as a great place and shows that she's fearless. Like the fact that she is in this position of power and clearly a lot of people in town respect her as a result of this shows how fearless she is. And then she gets antsy around Cobb. And so it's like Cobb he's a jovial guy, but he's always had a bit of darkness every time we see him. And then we see slightly more of that darkness here. And then the way he just like, oh yeah, Peyton has the job. Peyton never says yes until after a guy gets murdered in front of him, right? Which again reinforces your thing about Peyton's not quite a coward, but pretty close.
And I guess minor spoiler, because I don't know if we go into it, is that Cobb knows Peyton and explains the fact that you're never sure what Peyton is going to care about, which reestablishes who Peyton is completely.
Right.
So that's why you have Cobb, who's his friend, and I'm using fair quotes, trying to do what he thinks is best for this person that he believes is good, at least for his business and him, but also friendly.
Yeah, and again, like another reason why I think Cobb comes off a little more villainous here is because we did have Langston earlier in the movie, which was another complicated sheriff, but someone who was a little more trending towards what we consider to be moral. And Cobb is a little more using his power to control things here. So the fact that we have another character to contrast with, I think shows Cobb a bit more. But you're right in the sense of there's nobody here who's clearly the good guy and no one here is clearly the bad guy, which is wild in a movie that, as we've said multiple times now, is very clearly meant to be a stereotypical Western.
Because the only definitive bad guy that we have is McKendrick. Because we know
Yes.
McKendrick's men came and stole Ezra's farm and like burned everything down. So like
Right,
that
and
we
that's
know
only
is a definitive
because
bad guy.
we know about his bad deeds before we ever meet him, and when we meet him, he does not dissuade us of that opinion.
Yeah.
But whereas every other character, we find about their bad deeds after we've already met them and made an opinion of them.
Ezra, out for water in the morning, is murdered by McKendrick's men as he won't give up Mal's location. Awakened by gunfire, he finds Ezra's body in the river. Side note, I saw one of the interviews they're talking about is that they had to fight like the constant cold, and suppose that river was frozen over, and they had to break the ice for Danny Glover to go out to it.
Oh,
As
jeez.
the river, body in the river, as the murderers ride off into town. Mal learns of his estranged sister Ray is now a sex worker and wants nothing to do with him, while Stella and Emmett bond over the good stuff. After returning to town from the settlers, Jake and Tyree, who was Jake Fahey, who I mentioned earlier, face off in the Midnight Star, only to be diffused. The only situation only be diffused by Peyton. And Jake leaves, and Tyree, angry, is about to kill Peyton, but he is saved by Stella's quick thinking. While Augie is trying out tricks on the horse and runs into McKendrick and his men. Emmett makes peace with him until he learns about the horse that, from the opening scene of the movie, is McKendrick's brand for the men who came out to kill him.
Right. I think this
My
is
question for
now
you,
where. Yeah, go ahead.
before you go to that, does McKendrick know that his men sent someone out to kill Emmett right now?
Oh, that's a good point. I actually don't know.
Because think about the scene. I was looking at his face. If you remember the scene, it looks like he doesn't necessarily know that happened, but he's okay with it. He doesn't necessarily know that it happened.
That's such a really good point. So that implies that Emmett's bluffing a little bit here.
Now, like, not Emmett, but his men are operating and doing things that McKendrick is unaware of. Like, they sent killers out to kill Emmett, but Emmett put the brands together because this is the McKendrick brand. But McKendrick's face
No,
looks like he doesn't know that they were going to kill him.
Oh no, I'm saying is like Emmett's bluffing in the sense of he's the way he's phrasing things is implying a bit of like McKendrick may not be happy that you're doing this, but he can't possibly know that they're not working for him. So I think maybe he's bluffing to try to get information.
Okay,
but whatever. The point is,
that.
it's a complicated scene for what's a relatively straightforward situation.
Yeah,
and they actually do a good job of. Oh, sorry, finish that.
I was just gonna say, maybe to your point, maybe Emmett is also trying to defuse the situation because Augie's there and doesn't want a gunfight with Augie as a victim.
And that's actually pretty close to what I was going to say, in the sense that again, Emmett is good at kind of everything because he is the, I don't want to say generic, it's not the right word. He is the archetypal Western character.
Yeah.
So he's pretty good at everything, but he's not as good as talking as Peyton is, for example. But when someone who that's their specialty is not around, Emmett slides into all of those roles. And so here we have him as low-level investigator functionally. And the way it's shot is a really good thing of we see the brand on the horse for a good long while until he brings the horse around, and then we see the brand on the other horse realize that they're the same thing, So it's a great way of him putting things together that we're going, oh, he put it together already, but now we're seeing it.
Like game terms, I'd almost like I love breaking down the game terms since this is like just a game now. Essentially, we'll say if there were 10 skills in the game, Emmett would have all 10 skills at 60%. The other characters would potentially have like 4 skills at like 85 or 90%, and the rest of them all at like 30. So essentially, you have Emmett across the board doing everything proficiently, and these other ones being awesome at these few things. So that's how it breaks down in my head as even as I was watching the movie.
Right. This also brings up something that I genuinely don't know if it's good or bad. Normally in these movies, I like these things, which is why I'm struggling with this. In the fact that this movie sets up so much stuff, and it pays off, as far as I can tell, just about everything. We're now getting to the part of the movie where some of these things are starting to pay off. I think my frustration is there's just so much of it, and some of it is so, like, sometimes almost an hour apart that I've forgotten about it because there's so much stuff to keep track of,
Yeah.
that when stuff pays off, it's like, "Oh, wait, right, that was the thing that happens." Um, as a random note, 'cause I doubt we'll bring it up later, Augie is trying to jump on a horse that runs by, and they keep going, "Yeah, you just have to try it when it's standing still," and, blah, blah. And it seems like it's a fun scene of Emmett and Augie bonding, but then later on in the movie, Augie does jump off a roof to land on a horse.
With the worst
That's
special effects in the whole movie.
yes, no, it's awful. But that's a representative sample of, I think, about 7 or 8 plot points in this movie, where there's lots of stuff where something gets set up and then paid off. And I normally appreciate a film that is structurally sound enough that it can tie up all of its loose threads. But I was kind of going, did we really need to tie off all of these loose threads? Or maybe you shouldn't have had as many loose threads to begin with. you know? Again, the pacing is all weird.
Okay. This is also the scene we finally learn about the dog completely, for when Cobb is in the bar talking to Stella, and Slick is just there slicking it up.
Yeah.
Which boils down to his thing about like never knowing what Peyton will care about, and so always trying to figure it out. So that's why he's hard to like pin down. And we get a thing of Cobb literally warning Peyton to stay out of this because he doesn't want him to get hurt.
To your point about why Slick's there, actually, that actually is importance because he comes into town and says, "I want to set up a legal game," and uh, he gets pointed to Peyton, which s- start finishes the next step of Peyton's journey, where he's basically more or less forced into being the manager of the front of the house, the bar, the saloon. Then Slick has to be there because we have to see that Ray is consistently at Slick's side when he is doing these games. We have to see that to recognize that, because later on, Ray being next to Slick is an important plot point. And also, Slick is tying into Mal's subplots of his relationship with Ray, which I think shows what's interesting about this movie is that it's not quite that every scene's doing double duty so much as there are very few plots that only have an A B connection. There's always a bit of a
Yeah.
C or a D going in. And that's what's kind of happening here is that we're starting to slowly see, I mentioned before, Cobb is being on the trajectory for being the big villain for the movie. Now we're starting to see how those threads, because Cobb is also the sheriff. It's the, okay, Cobb's relationship with Peyton is going to contrast with his duties as sheriff and his duties as saloon owner. And so everyone's threads are going to ultimately intersect through Cobb, and we're starting to see that. But and Slick and Ray are part of that. But it has the secondary effect of, again, establishing that Silverado is a community of people. So, like, of course, Slick's going to be in the saloon because that's what he's there for. So while all of them are doing an actual plot thing, they have the knock-on effect of feeling like this is a group of people who live together rather than just a bunch of characters who happen to be in each other's space.
Yeah. And the other big thing about Cobb, though, is Cobb is representative really of sheriffs and everything at the time, because there are a lot of sheriffs of towns who are also ran like casinos, or they were faro dealers. Like, for instance, I remember right, the Earps were law enforcement and faro dealers, and they cheated.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So anyone that has like those high ideals, know that they're all a bunch of gray and questionable people.
Right.
Anything else before we move on?
Yep, let's move on. So we have a lot to cover still.
The next day, Emmett is out with his firearms practicing pistols, rifles, pew, 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 when he's ambushed. He's trampled multiple times. He's saved by Mal, who takes him back to the cave and mends his wounds. Mal goes into town to find Jake, who, unbeknownst to him, is swinging it up in a barn with a sex worker. He asks his sister Ray for help, who has her friend Slick go to find Jake. But the no good so-and-so sells Mal out to Cobb, who with his men try to beat Emmett's location out of him to no avail. Peyton tries to convince Mal while Mal's in jail beaten, but the rancher makes the gambler realize he's a yellow bastard.
Yeah, a lot happens here. I did appreciate the scene of Emmett showing off all of his gun tricks with a can, and then the second he's out of bullets, everyone jumps him, right?
Yeah.
It's like the NPCs go, okay, this guy's thing is guns. Let's wait until he has no more bullets before we attack. And they do a good job. And so I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't a pulp movie. But then he gets stomped by a horse in the head twice and lives. I'm like, okay, no, this is a pulp movie.
What I love this contrast though, because there's an amazing amount of realism that is constantly in combat with the pulp version of it, because
yeah,
the bullets are countable, and when you're out of shots, you're out of shots.
mm-hmm.
The horse stuff is super dangerous and real. There's so much realism associated with it, and then it's over the top with pulp. It is how pulp should be done, in my opinion. Like
Yeah,
they're definitive rules that the universe goes by, and it mostly sticks to them.
right. And the only reason why I half quibble with the horse scene, the only reason why I think it gets a pass is because we've never seen horse violence in this movie, and therefore we don't know what the rules for horse violence are. You know,
Yeah.
so we don't know if in this universe horses can step on people and they survive. So if that's the case, then yes, it is playing by the rules. It does seem in sharp contrast in the moment, especially because I know people who have been stepped on by horses and what damage it can do. So yeah, but again, the movie does hedge. You're right, like because the horse never is
Steps
seen
on him.
stepping on him, which I think is partially because they're trying to keep it family friendly.
Yeah.
But it has resulted. It does look like the horse kind of just skims him a couple of times. So it could be read that because horses don't like stepping on things, so it may be the case like the guy is trying to run him down, but the horse is like, no, I'm not going to do that, and steps over him, a couple of times, and so kind of just clips
Yeah.
him with the horseshoe or whatever. Mhm.
And you have Emmett trying to protect himself. So a minor spoiler
Right.
for the film. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a scene where we'll come back to this horse violence.
Sure. Right. Okay.
That reinforces what you're saying. So yeah, there's a lot that happens, but it's also like mostly an action beat. And we get Mal
Mhm.
again being the rifleman saving people, which is where I got my line from. And it's planning that I love. Like even the NPCs aren't stupid. They
Yeah.
know they can't take him, so they have to think of a tactical way to be able to try to even beat him. So it's plain
Right. And like similar to that, like Mal talking to Ray, who talks to Slick. You almost forget the fact that Slick and Ray didn't exist in this movie until halfway through, you know? But yet, because the movie's been good about sticking them in the background of scenes and having them just make casual comments in scenes, they feel like they're already a part of the web of relationships here. So it feels like a natural outgrowth, but also we start to see that Ray's relationship with Slick is also much more nuanced than it first appeared. Because the movies keep family friendly, at no point in time is she explicitly a sex worker. It's always been heavily implied throughout the whole movie. But it's very clear also that they have an ongoing contract, shall we say?
And we get the big confrontation between Mal and Peyton that helps pushing Peyton toward a certain decision.
Mhm.
Anything else before we move on? Because that was a lot of stuff, but it's easy to go over.
Well, there's another great moment because you mentioned the "Don't shoot the sheriff" line in your notes here, where uh, Cobb is starting to leverage all the complicated stuff going on in some interesting ways. Because when he gets confronted, it's like, don't shoot the sheriff. It's like, but you did kill 2 deputies. And for me, that scene clicked into place what the movie's trying to do, which is that all of these disparate things that are happening are slowly, steadily building together. Cobb is gathering all the threads in his hand, as it were. Right. And so what's actually happened? So the movie ultimately boils down to Cobb's like, I'm going to mop up all of the other character subplots. I need you, Peyton, to stay out of it because you're my friend.
Yeah.
And Peyton does not agree with that plan. Partially because of the relationship with Stella. And Cobb would not be involved in this issue if he wasn't the sheriff. and they wouldn't be going after Cobb if it wasn't for the fact that his deputies were using their power. It was like
And you
when you
know
start
that they all
thinking
work
about
for
it,
McKendrick.
right?
Because we have
Because
that
all over
scene.
McKendrick, and because McKendrick killed Mal's or tried to kill Mal's dad, and then spoiler does kill Mal's dad. So like all this stuff starts to slowly flow into Cobb as the center point of it. So it's wild at how there's so much going on. It's weirdly almost like uh, the Knives Out movies in a way because it gives you so much information and time shifts the resolution of them so much that you kind of don't think about how it all ties together until it just snaps into place and it's like, oh, that's how it all works. And it doesn't feel like there's ever a big aha moment. But for me, the "don't shoot the sheriff" line was the big aha moment because then all the deputies come out and go, "But you did kill some deputies," and it's just like, oh, but they're this and that. Oh, I see now. So.
I won't make a Ziggy Marley joke. Kidnapping Jake and Augie, McKendrick's men burn JT's land office. Stella leads the town in trying to put out the fire. Ray learns that Slick sold out her brother. In front of the burning house, Peyton tells Cobb that he'll have to look into this before the corrupt sheriff says it'd be a shame if something happened to Stella to keep Peyton from intervening. But later, Stella urges him to take action, and Ray is wounded breaking her brother out of jail, while Emmett is badly hurt and near death in the cave. Stella takes in Ray to care for her while Mal returns to Emmett, telling him about the kidnapped Augie and Jate, and the pair mount up. My favorite part of this whole thing, Eddie, is the healing power of vengeance. Emmett near death. They kidnapped my brothers.
Rip off the bandage. Yes.
Wolverine-like regeneration, just bam, fully in effect.
It's the your NPC close to you got kidnapped. Here's your plot points. You can use it to spend it healing immediately.
It is a fucking video game. Oh, just boop. Because we have like shots of Emmett back in cave where everything's going on, and he's like, "Oh, I'm feverish. Oh, I'm passing out."
Yeah.
They got Augie. Let's get those fuckers.
Right. It's so funny. But yeah, like even in the middle of this, right? Like I'm seeing where all the threads are coming up, and the movie's still undercutting my expectations in good ways, like the whole Stella thing. Like Stella's going to be the emotional to get Peyton to flip over. I get that. Yeah. Again, I'm with you. Stella's the actual romantic interest here because everything in this movie, from a trope standpoint, points to Stella being the romantic interest. But because the people making the movie don't realize that, Stella gets interesting reactions to that. Huh?
I think they realize it. They want to do it, but they know that they can't do it because likely the executives won't let them do that.
Okay, fair.
Because they cast her, they wrote it, so I'm assuming they know it and they want to do it.
But in the middle of that, like she's, like you said, right up front and putting out the fire, right? So she's not a shrinking violet anyway. And then when she and Peyton have the conversation, she says probably the best line for "don't use me as vengeance" I've ever heard, which is that, so what you're saying is I'm going to be responsible for hurting people. And they can't hurt them if he's dead.
Yep.
And I'm like, I have actually never heard the whole, "oh, we'll hurt your family." That I've never heard someone in that position actually say something explicit like that before. And I'm like, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
But shows you she's a realist. She's not a shrinking violet. She's like, no, it's the West. I know people fucking die. If we kill this guy, we're both safe. Take the easy option. And Peyton's like, but I don't want to hurt people. And she's like, suck it up and kill the guy.
And once again, this is the point where we go that Cobb, up to 85% of this movie, is Peyton's friend. Like,
sure.
And bending over backwards to try to not kill him.
And to your point, Peyton's reluctance to kill Cobb, even though lots of situations have come with, like, it seems like Peyton's a coward, we find out that's not actually true. We find out that Peyton cares too much, and part of the reason why he doesn't get involved is because he doesn't want to get emotionally involved and end up in a cycle of violence. Because that's what happened to him with the dog. That's what the whole dog's a metaphor for, is that he's not a coward, quite the opposite. He's terrified of what he can do. And so because of all the time they spend on screen with him and Cobb together, even when he's telling that dog story, Peyton's still laughing about it like it's an old story. Like, yeah, he makes fun of me about the dog, you know? And so when he's like, I don't want to do it, it's not because he's scared, it's because he's my friend. Yes, he's an asshole, but he is my friend. And Stella's like, look at all the hurt he's doing. Look at all the people he's hurting. Your friend is doing this. You have to take accountability for your friend. And so even though the movie is ending up in the same place where a heavily trope-ridden movie would have also gone, because it spends the time to actually make characters and people out of all of these things, it feels a million times more earned.
Yeah, because even when Cobb initially shows up, he's saving Peyton. Like, because the Union person likely would not have given him the horse. He says
Mhm.
what his name is. He gives him money. He offers him a job. Like all
Yeah.
these things already. So it's all there and it's built up and it has that thing right away. Love it. The other thing that I'm really loving is this film is showing you the power of fire in the Old West
Yeah. Yeah.
multiple times.
Because when the first time they set fire to the gallows, it was like, it's kind of funny and ironic. But then the fire starts spreading. It's like, oh wait, no. And then this happens, and like the whole town is like, no, we got to put this out. And then Cobb's like, yeah, let it burn, you know. But like, and everyone's town's like, are you crazy? No, we shouldn't do that. So yeah, you're right.
And my
Fire becomes a real threat.
and in the notes I have like a joke about did that guy fail out of law school, which is why he burned the place down. But it does in fact go into the land rights because the land rights are why Ezra gets killed in the movie.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's also into why Cobb doesn't care if the land office gets burned down
Right.
because he works for McKendrick. Like there's a layer of writing for this that is spot on.
Yeah, and then because to be relevant in a minute here, in the middle of all of this, Ray turns on Slick by cuddling up to him during yet another of his or his gambling games, because we've seen him now a couple times in his background doing that. But she slides the knife out of his boot and uses that against him. No, no, sorry, Mal uses it against him. Apologies. Um, but like we see, even Ray, who's been a minor character thus far, has her own agency, and then gets shot and struggles through the pain to try to do her part. And so like
She
it's like every character has some agency here.
because she steals a knife from Slick to go and free Mal from jail. Like that
Right, that
is
was it.
oh. And we get the amazing knife throw by Mal. Once again, reinforced it's a pulp movie.
Yep. Oh well,
Where
we're coming up on a scene where it's really clear it's a pulp movie.
where PCs kill and PCs primarily wound. Okay. Emmett, Mal, and Peyton attack McKendrick's ranch with a fucking stampede, killing most of his men. Emmett rescues Augie as Jake joins the fight, while McKendrick flees into town. The four compatriots split up. Jake guns down Cobb's right-hand man, Tyree. Mal rescues Ray from Slick, killing him with his own knife. I put all this into one big thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Emmett deals with the remaining corrupt deputies and fatally kills McKendrick with horse foo, and Peyton
Right.
shoots Cobb dead in a duel at high noon in front of a church as literal tumbleweeds roll around them, witnessed by grateful Stella. At the end of the movie, bidding everyone goodbye, a reconciled Mel and Ray depart to rebuild their family's homestead. As Emmett and Jake finally head to California for some fucking unknown reason, because who knows what they're going to do there. And Peyton becomes a sheriff of Silverado, while Emmett and Peyton banter about who should take Hannah, and neither of them do, leaving her in a weird spot in this fucking movie. I even own
Right.
Hannah.
So this and this is I think the most conflicting part of the whole movie for me, because like on the one hand, I enjoyed just watching the end of the movie, right? A lot of cool stuff happens, and there's lots of payoffs for stuff that's have been teased throughout the whole movie, right? But I mean, with all that being said, the actual, like for example, the gunfight in the middle of the street. Could not be more stereotypically gunfight in the middle of dawn, right? Like the whole movie literally goes through. They do the Sergio shot of like right behind the gun, so you can see the other thing, and then they do the opposite shot of the other person's guns. You can see the other thing, and I'm just like, okay, there's homage and there's homage, right? It's like this is the thing that westerns do. They have the gunfight, and it's like, which is funny because through this whole run, I've never actually seen that until this movie.
Because you saw a curated list of westerns, so
Correct, I know, and we miss a lot of more stereotypical westerns. So like I recognize that, right? But I, who have watched very few westerns, recognize that shot. That's how stereotypical that shot is, you know.
And they even have Cobb with his long ass coat, like throw it to the side dramatically
Yes.
to sort of, oh my god.
Goodbye, Cobb. Goodbye, Peyton.
And,
you know, it's
and they both smile at each other too. It's like, here's the thing, and it's not just one tumbleweed. They're tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds were not in the movie before. They all waited here to be in the scene.
Right.
But like we didn't even talk about the ranch attack yet.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Right. They just have a stampede just go through as a distraction.
Because it is Western, the movie, Eddie. Like, they had to have every single... All right, fuck this. Let's just go into the wrap-up, because...
Okay, because we're there.
We feel like we're at the wrap-up, because I condensed that 30 minutes down to one blurb. Because that is two very distinctive big fight pieces that I just put together. What are your closing thoughts on the entire movie and that fight scene and everything for Western, the movie, a.k.a. Silverado? Part one.
I think I'm going to have to go with I like it. Which sounds like I'm damning with faint praise, right? But it's... the fight... I think the fight scene is actually a good way to kind of help pick apart my emotions on this, because it's a really well-constructed movie that feels overstuffed. And I think part of the overstuffedness is it's trying to do Western things. And that's fine, especially if the premise of the movie is we want to show that Westerns can still make money. We have to do Western things to show that Westerns can do good things. And no one's going to go into a theater in 1985 unless they see Western stuff, right? So like I get all of the logic for how I got here. It's unfortunately part of a surprisingly good film. And so sometimes the Western stuff gets in the way of the good film stuff. The problem with that thought process is that it's not like Heaven's Gate, where it feels like there's two different films going on at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
This feels like there's one film with just too much bits in it. I can't take the Western stuff out of it, because then that cuts into the good stuff. I can't take the good stuff out of it because the Western stuff makes no sense anymore. You know, it is all interconnected. The movie cannot exist without all these pieces. And the movie is scrupulous in paying everything off, even when it would be better to forget it. To your point, the love interest, the movie goes out of its way to pay it off by refusing to pay it off. But it's like, no, we have to acknowledge she's still here and she has to make a decision. The answer is neither of them. And I'm like, honestly, it'd be better if you had just forgotten about her. Right?
Yes.
She just faded away, you know? You didn't have to pay that off.
She should have had her speech, and then Peyton goes, okay, and that would have been the end of it.
Right, and Peyton goes, you know what, second thought, you're a little too much for me to handle. I'm going to go over here and have sex with the barmaid instead.
I'm already in love with Stella. It's not even a thing.
Just accept it, you know? And I think also part of it is, something we've announced a couple times, is that this movie is also slightly hampered by a specific audience, which is 1985 family-friendly audiences. So certain things it couldn't do that a bolder film probably could have tried to do. So I don't hate it by stretch of imagination. I enjoyed watching it, but I'm tired watching it. I'm tired talking about it. Like, this is so much.
So to wrap up one of our loose ends, I'm going to go back to the deadliness of horses in combat.
Fair.
I didn't mention, I purposely waited, but we have the fact that the big bad, the major major antagonist the whole piece, because Cobb works for McKendrick. McKendrick's tentacles is the whole reason for the movie. Is killed by Emmett, who gets wounded to show you that guns hurt even player characters.
Yep.
Is dispatched with Emmett's horse riding skill. Like the horse hits him once and he's dead. And they like jump hit him in the head, like full on hit. That's not sort of not touching him. Like horse hoof connects with head, dead. Boom. Right. To reinforce how you were saying, deadly horses. Which
I had forgotten that part.
Out of all the films we've seen, no one has been killed by a horse to date.
Yeah. And this movie does it 1.5 times.
All right, I had to go back and make that. We've already talked about the bad special effects saving Augie, and there's so much work at play here. Like, one of the reasons how they made it family friendly is when Augie says that Jake fell off his horse and died. You have Emmett smiling and saying Jake fell off his horse, knowing that's not true. So they're reassuring like kids that are watching the movie. So it's going out of its way to be family friendly, but at the same time trying to build suspense for adults. Much like you, this movie is a lot of a lot. I disagree with you saying it's just one movie. This is 4 movies rolled up into one with nearly every Western trope they could think of. The reason it works, because I like this movie. It is utterly watchable. It's watchable in 30-minute chunks, to be perfect.
Yeah, it's what I did, actually.
Unlike Heaven's Gate, there is a lot of charisma on the screen from the actors themselves, who look like they were loving what they're doing and being part of the process. Heaven's Gate didn't seem to have that same level of charisma, or else the actors may not have loved what they were doing, or the director was actively fighting against that for a very specific vision. This is engaging. It is open. It is way too fucking much so, which is probably why it was only marginally successful and to get a sequel. But I can't see how it could be done differently for the story Kasdan was trying to tell.
I mean, now that you say all that, I mean, I think the big thing is that the director was in love. The director of Heaven's Gate was in love with his vision of the movie. This director is in love with Westerns. And if he genuinely thought this may be the last Western we get to make, we got to make this everything it could possibly be, I think that helps me get to my answer, was that it has anniversary special energy.
Yes.
This feels like we're celebrating 60 years of Doctor Who. We're celebrating 50 years of Star Trek, whatever. Let's cram as many cameos and references and tropes into it as we possibly can, because we don't know if we're going to get this kind of celebration again. That's, I think, what this movie's trying to do. And it's doing that. But I think we both agree it needs to do more or less of that.
And I don't think it should be longer. It should be a miniseries.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, you didn't want to be on TV. That wasn't where you were going to make your big bucks or make like a significant difference. Yeah, back then it had to be a film. Like, that is how you make things happen. And now it's different. People understand that the power of television is incredible, which is why you have all the streaming shows now. And like Tyler Sheridan, if we're going to keep it the West, is like kicking everybody's butt for Westerns.
Yeah. And then I wonder, you said before, like, this logically led to a television series, which probably points to Deadwood as the logical conclusion of this style of storytelling.
I would say that all Westerns that came after this, to some extent, owe their existence to what Silverado set up.
The heavily ensemble style of Western, you mean?
Yep. Because Deadwood is an ensemble big cast. Young Guns is a big cast of people. I keep thinking about them. And if you want to go to like now the 2015s, you've got Hell on Wheels, that is technically led by Anson Mount, but is more of an ensemble piece. So its influence is still there.
Well, the movie
we're going to talk about next
was an ensemble movie, but I suppose that was an outlier, wasn't it?
You mean from 1938?
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, for the reinvigorating the Western is what Silverado did. I'm not saying.
Oh, no. Okay. That's a fair point. Yeah, you're right. Because, like, to be fair, the 60s and 70s Westerns, were all very much, you have the one taciturn lead who does all the things. This is arguably a return to form for Westerns.
Because even with Blazing Saddles and Buck and the Preacher, you had like two leads. Technically, one of them was a primary lead, the other was a secondary lead. And this goes, we got like 4 or 5 fucking leads. Run with it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, yeah, because you're right. Red Dawn also had 2. So we could argue 60s was the rise of a solitary lead, 70s was the rise of 2 leads, and the 80s is the rise of ensemble.
Because even if we jump back to like the Oxbow incident for us, Henry Fonda is technically the lead with Harry Morgan as the secondary character to him.
That
it's like, hey, you're right, boss. You're right, boss. But now to contrast that, Eddie, what are we doing next week?
We're going to go all the way from 1985 to 1985, I guess. Yes, so we're going to go to the other Western of 1985, Pale Rider. So we're finally going to talk about Clint Eastwood, I guess.
Did I actually vote it for a long time? Yeah, I did.
In the process of finding a movie stream, I have inadvertently gotten a couple pieces of information, one of which is that apparently this was the only Clint Eastwood movie of the 80s, Western of the 80s. It was directed by him, and arguably one of the better 80s Western movies. So
depends on who you're asking, what you look for.
I did say arguably. I didn't say accurately.
If people want... Sorry, go ahead.
We'll talk about this. I was going to ask you what I got. You've asked me first. So if people want to talk to me about Clint Eastwood or Pale Rider or indeed this very emotionally conflicting movie, Silverado, you can find me at pugsteady.com. That is my website. That is where you'll find me on Blue Sky, or you will find me on the Darker Hue Discord, where I talk about stuff. Right now, probably going to be talking about the Larry Hama G.I. Joe comic, because I just backed Kickstarter.
I myself would be talking about that Kickstarter because Eddie has convinced me to back it once we're done recording it today. If you're looking for me, I'm in the Discord. I keep saying every week that I should post a Discord. I haven't posted yet. It's been like a month now. Right. If I remember to do it, I'll post about the Discord today to get more folks in. But it's super chilled. I think there's actually like 8 of us that really say anything anymore.
Right. But
I kind of like
have fun.
Yeah. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at darker_hue on Blue Sky. If you want to buy a physical copy of Haunted West, you can't because they're all sold out. You can still buy the digital version, or you can find them on eBay. I think I saw one for $300.
Don't you have POD on drive-thru?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to spend the next 20 minutes about having a discussion about printer quality for POD and the size of Haunted West? How I did like a physical comparison of the print run version from the printer versus the POD version, and the paper quality and book quality.
Is gigantic.
I so many jokes I could make. Anyway, go see Western the movie. It's good. It's worth your time. All 8 hours of it.
Talk to you later.
I think I'm going to make a movie called Print Run the Movie.